just get the off.
Bill Maher has never been afraid to go where others won't. And once again, he found himself face-to-face with Hollywood's obsession with so-called progressive virtue signaling, this time in the form of Drew Barrymore, whom many know as the bubbly, light-hearted actress and talk show host, but in recent years has leaned heavily into the culture of performative activism, the kind of woke ideology that values slogans over substance.
Anything that exists of the truth. It's your truth. And
there is also in life the truth. We may not always be able to discern it, but there is the truth.
Feelings over facts and applause over truth. And here's the thing, Bill Maher doesn't play that game. He's been calling out the absurdities of the modern woke movement for years, pointing out how it undermines genuine progress and reduces complex issues into bumper sticker platitudes. And that's exactly why this clash mattered. Because when Drew Barrymore tried to couch her arguments in emotional appeals, Maher countered with facts, logic, and that unshakable wit that has kept him relevant for decades. Now let's talk about the bigger picture here. Wokeism thrives on a few things.
The truth. Not everything is just your truth. I mean, your truth has become sort of like code word for just whatever I feel like believing. Well, that's not really the same thing as your truth. You feel this way.
Yeah.
Feeling is not enough for me.
Emotional manipulation, peer pressure, and the illusion that to disagree with its talking points is somehow immoral. But Maher's brilliance is that he cuts through the theatrics. He reminds people that the loudest voices are not always the wisest, and that moral superiority does not equal actual truth. In fact, many times it covers for lazy thinking and hypocrisy. For example, when discussions tilt toward identity politics, wokeism says lived experience is everything. Science and data come second. But reality says the opposite. Reality says that feelings are valid, but they don't rewrite biology, they don't override hard evidence, and they certainly don't dismantle thousands of years of accumulated human knowledge. Maher has often pointed out that progress cannot be built on denying basic truths. Yet Drew's arguments fell into that exact trap, painting disagreement as cruelty instead of confronting the weakness in her own reasoning. And what's more, Maher has been one of the only figures in mainstream media to say this openly, to point out that protecting free speech, comedy, and debate is more progressive than shaming or silencing dissenters. And in this showdown, he reminded viewers why so many silently agree with him, but are too afraid to speak up because wokeism has turned into a culture of intimidation, one where people whisper in private but clap in public out of fear of backlash. The exchange was tense, it was revealing, but above all, it was symbolic of something much larger. The ongoing war between Hollywood's performative idealism and the grounded, unflinching demand for truth. Maher became the voice of those who were tired of the theatrics, tired of the endless apologies, tired of being told that facts don't matter if they hurt someone's feelings. And Barrymore? She became the perfect representation of that side of Hollywood that crumbles when pressed with logic instead of validation. And here's what made it sting even more. Maher didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to, because the fact for loud enough, he calmly dismantled weak talking points, one after the other, showing that when it comes to debate, it's not about who can cry louder, it's about who can stay grounded when the emotional fireworks start to go off. So by the end of it, one thing was clear, this wasn't just a celebrity spat on live TV. This was a microcosm of the cultural battle happening everywhere, between those who believe in truth, evidence, and debate, and those who would rather censor, shame, and cancel in the name of moral superiority. And Maher? He made it very clear which side of history he intends to stand on. What made this moment between Bill Maher and Drew Barrymore so striking is that it exposed the fundamental flaw in the woke worldview. Because at its core, wokeism relies on emotional absolutism. The idea that if something hurts feelings, then it must be wrong. But the truth, reality doesn't bend to emotions. Reality doesn't care about how softly Hollywood phrases its slogans. Reality is grounded in hard evidence. And Maher dragged that evidence front and center. Take one of the most obvious battlegrounds, biology and gender. Wokeism insists that simply declaring something makes it true, that personal identification automatically overrides centuries of scientific understanding. But Maher has consistently pointed out the danger of ignoring biology, not because he lacks compassion, but because compassion without truth leads to chaos. It creates policies that crumble in real-world application. It creates rules that make no sense outside of a Twitter echo chamber, and that's the kind of clarity Barrymore couldn't answer with anything other than platitudes. And then there's the issue of free speech. Wokeism thrives on silencing dissent, on creating a culture where saying the wrong thing gets you canceled, demonized, or erased. But Maher hammered the point home. Free speech isn't just for opinions you like, it's for the ones you can't stand. It's for the ones that make you uncomfortable, because discomfort is the foundation of growth, and without it, society doesn't progress, it stagnates, trapped in its own fragile bubble, something Barrymore's. Emotional appeals only reinforced. Maher went further, highlighting the hypocrisy of Hollywood's obsession with representation. Because while actors give speeches about inclusion and equality, behind the curtain, Hollywood still runs on elitism, nepotism, and money, not the woke slogans they sell to the public. Maher's point was simple. If you're going to preach, at least practice. But when exposed to that mirror, Barrymore had no answer. Because wokeism has always been about appearances, not solutions. And what makes Maher so effective in these debates is that he doesn't deny progress. He doesn't argue against equality, but he insists progress must be built on reality, not fantasy. That progress without truth is just self-indulgence dressed up as virtue. And that's why his words cut through. Because people watching at home know this. They see the contradictions, they see the fragility, and they crave someone willing to call it out. He even touched on cancel culture, reminding everyone that fear-based conformity is not the same as moral progress. Because when people are forced to agree out of fear, when comedians can't joke, when professors can't teach, when workers are fired for a slip of the tongue, that's not a better world, that's a brittle one. One where honesty dies and only performance survives. And Barrymore's position, whether she realized it or not, was defending that brittle world. By the end of the exchange, it wasn't even about Barrymore personally anymore. It was about what she represented, a Hollywood bubble clinging to narratives that collapse the second they're tested. And Maher? He became the cold splash of reality, saying what millions think but don't dare say aloud. That wokeism doesn't liberate, it suffocates, it doesn't empower, it infantilizes, and until Hollywood learns that lesson, it will keep crumbling under the weight of its own contradictions. So this wasn't just Maher shutting down a celebrity on live TV. This was Maher exposing the larger truth, that when facts meet feelings, feelings alone will never win. Because no matter how passionately you argue, gravity still pulls, biology still defines, and free speech still matters. And the longer wokeism pretends otherwise, the louder its collapse will be.